I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who cheats. Not because I thought I was better than that, just because I never imagined I'd have the guts or the weakness to cross that line. But I did, and I swear it changed everything about how I see myself. I met my girlfriend Rachel when we were both 23. She was sharp, warm, honest, the kind of person who looks you in the eye and actually listens. We moved in together 2 years later, got a dog, started planning a future. On paper, everything looked good. Except somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling alive. It wasn't her fault. Not really. Life just became predictable. Wake up, coffee, commute, small talk, meetings, dinner, Netflix, bed, repeat. She started talking about marriage, about kids, about the next step. I'd nod and smile. But inside, I felt like I was suffocating. Then, one night after work, my team went out for drinks. I hadn't planned on staying late, but my boss ordered another round, and the new hire, Megan, laughed at something I said, and for the first time in months, I felt seen. You know that kind of laugh that feels like sunlight after a long winter? That was hers. We ended up sitting outside the bar while everyone else left, talking about nothing, about traffic, about stupid clients, about the way the city smells after rain. She was younger than me by a few years, funny in a way that didn't feel forced. When she leaned closer to say something, her perfume hit me, and something in my chest just cracked open. I didn't kiss her that night, but I wanted to, and wanting felt like betrayal already. The first time it happened, it was after another work happy hour, 2 weeks later. We shared an Uber home. Her stop came first. She hesitated before getting out. And then she kissed me. It wasn't some passionate movie moment. It was clumsy, rushed, a little wrong. But my hands didn't pull away. I told myself it was just a mistake. A one-time thing. But one time became 2. Then 3. It's amazing how fast guilt turns into routine. I'd tell Rachel I had late meetings. I'd send her pictures of takeout containers to prove I was working late. Meanwhile, I'd be at Megan's apartment, convincing myself I could keep both worlds separate if I just kept my stories straight. But guilt has a smell, and Rachel started noticing. She didn't accuse me at first. She just got quieter, distant. I'd catch her watching me sometimes, her eyes searching my face for something. I stopped looking back. One night, I came home past midnight and she was still awake. She didn't say a word, just handed me my phone. On the screen was a message from Megan I hadn't deleted. Nothing explicit, but enough. I froze, I couldn't even lie. She just whispered, "How long?" I told her the truth, or at least part of it. A month, it had been 5. She didn't cry. She just left the room. And for the next few days, the house felt haunted. Not by ghosts, but by silence. The dog followed me everywhere, as if it could sense something collapsing inside me. I told Megan I couldn't see her anymore. She said she understood. But she didn't stop texting. The thing about cheating is, it's not the act that kills you. It's the aftermath. The lies multiply like mold. The guilt becomes part of your bloodstream. And no matter how much you try to fix things, something in the foundation is permanently cracked. Rachel didn't leave right away. She said she needed time. But time turned into distance. And distance turned into a wall I couldn't break through. I wanted to believe that if I apologized enough, if I changed enough, things could go back to normal. But you can't unmake a betrayal. You can only live with the echo of it. Every time I saw her eyes, I saw myself the way she saw me. Small, weak, pathetic. I think the worst part isn't losing her. It's realizing how easily I threw away something real for something that never was. And now, when people talk about cheating, about mistakes or temptation, I stay quiet. Because it's not a story. It's a wound that never heals. And sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I can still smell her perfume. Not Rachel's. Megan's. After Rachel found out, she didn't throw anything, didn't scream, didn't hit me, which somehow hurt more than if she had. She just folded inward. For a while, we lived in the same apartment like strangers who happened to share rent. She slept in the bedroom. I took the couch. We'd exchange small words. Did you feed the dog? There's coffee. You left the light on. But they were hollow, robotic. I thought stupidly that giving her space would fix it. That she'd cool down. Remember, I was human, not a monster. But silence can rot you from the inside out. I started doing the dishes at midnight just to fill the noise. I'd walk the dog twice as long, even in the cold. I started listening to podcasts I didn't care about just so I wouldn't have to sit with my thoughts. And Megan kept texting. At first, she just wanted to talk. Then, when I didn't answer, she started sending pictures. Her at bars, with other guys, always a little too close. Always smiling at the camera like she was trying to remind me what I'd lost. I didn't respond. But I didn't block her either. That's the part I still hate myself for. 2 weeks later, Rachel told me she was staying with her sister for a while. She didn't say when she'd be back. When the door shut behind her, I realized the apartment had never been mine. It had always been ours. And now it just felt borrowed. That night, I drank alone for the first time in years. I thought I'd earned it. Thought I needed it. But alcohol doesn't numb guilt. It just turns it into a slideshow. Every word, every touch, every lie you told replays in perfect, unbearable clarity. I texted Megan. I didn't say much, just, "You up?" And she replied instantly. That should have told me everything. The next day, I woke up in her bed again. Same smell of coffee, same sheets, same fake comfort. I remember staring at her ceiling and realizing I'd circled all the way back to the start, except now I'd lost the only person who'd ever really loved me. When I left, she said, "You'll come back." I didn't answer. But she was right. The following month was a blur of guilt and escape. I'd tell myself I was done with Megan, that I was moving on. Then I'd find myself outside her building pretending I was just in the neighborhood. Every time I hated myself a little more. And every time she'd open the door like she'd been waiting. It wasn't love. It wasn't even lust anymore. It was punishment. Some nights afterward, I'd lie there staring at the wall and think about Rachel. Where she was sleeping, what she was thinking, whether she still hated me or had already moved on. I hoped she had. About 2 months after she left, Rachel texted me for the first time. Just one line. "I'll be coming by to pick up the rest of my stuff this weekend." That was it. No greeting, no emotion, nothing. I cleaned the apartment for hours before she came. I don't even know why. Maybe I wanted her to see I was still someone she could forgive. But when she arrived, she didn't look at anything. She just walked in, grabbed boxes, and avoided eye contact the whole time. The dog whined when she picked up her things. It knew. Animals always know. When she was done, she stood by the door for a long second. Then she said quietly, "You think you can control what you ruin, but once it's broken, it doesn't care who broke it." And she left. I didn't move for an hour. That night, I deleted Megan's number, blocked her on everything. Then I sat on the couch, in the dark, and tried to figure out who I was now. It's strange. The thing that destroys you isn't always the betrayal itself. Sometimes it's realizing how small you were when you did it. Because I didn't cheat out of passion. I cheated out of emptiness. And emptiness has no apology big enough to fill it. A month later, I saw Rachel again, accidentally, at a grocery store in line behind me. She looked lighter, different. She smiled, politely, distantly, like I was someone she used to know. And that smile gutted me more than any argument ever could. Because that's when I knew she'd healed. And I hadn't. I thought I was done with her. I really did. After Rachel left, I swore to myself that Megan was part of a life I'd buried. A version of me I'd burned to the ground. But people like Megan don't let you end things on your terms. It started a few weeks after that grocery store encounter with Rachel. I came home from work late. My job didn't even demand those hours anymore. I just couldn't stand being home too long. And there was a small envelope taped to my apartment door. No name, just my address in black ink. Inside there was a single photo. Me. Asleep. In my bed. I froze. My brain couldn't process it at first. The timestamp in the corner was from 3 nights earlier. I hadn't had anyone over. I hadn't given anyone a key. For a second, I thought maybe it was a prank. Some twisted coincidence. But then I saw the faint pink reflection of her phone case in the edge of the frame. Megan. I called her. I shouldn't have, but I did. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "Hey, stranger, what the hell is this?" I asked. My hands were shaking. "How did you—" She cut me off. "You shouldn't have blocked me." Silence. Just breathing on the line. Then she said, "You left me with all your promises. I just wanted to give something back." And she hung up. For days, I kept the lights on. Slept with the TV playing in the background just to drown out every creak, every sound. I checked the locks twice before bed, taped over the peephole. I didn't tell anyone. Who would I tell? My ex? My boss? The police? Hi, I slept with a coworker, cheated on my girlfriend, broke it off, and now she's breaking into my apartment to take pictures of me. Yeah, that'd go well. A week later, I saw her outside my office building. She was leaning against a car, smoking, sunglasses on even though it was cloudy. When our eyes met, she smiled. That same soft, knowing smile she used the first night we met. I turned around and walked the other way. But later that night, I found a voicemail from her. No words, just her humming a tune. The same one she used to play when she cooked at her place? Something inside me cracked. Not anger, not fear, something worse. Guilt. Because even then, some part of me still missed her. And I hated myself for that. The next weekend, I went to my parents' place for the first time in months. I told them I just needed a break from the city, but really, I just needed to sleep somewhere that didn't feel like a confession booth. Out there, things were quiet. I started to breathe again. Until one morning, my mom said, "Oh, a friend of yours called here yesterday. A woman said she was trying to reach you." I felt my stomach drop. Did she say her name? She frowned, thinking. I think she said Megan. She was very polite. That night, I couldn't sleep. I drove back to the city the next day. just to make sure nothing had been touched. Everything was exactly how I left it, except for one thing. On my pillow, there was a single Polaroid. Me in my parents' kitchen, sitting at the table, drinking coffee. The photo had been taken that morning. I didn't even think. I packed a bag and left. I didn't know where I was going, just drove until I couldn't see the skyline anymore. Somewhere along the highway, my phone buzzed with a text. From an unknown number. You should have just stayed. I went to the police the next day. I told them someone had been following me, breaking into my apartment. They took a report, asked a few questions, then told me to change my locks and stay alert. That was it. They didn't care. Why would they? There were no bruises, no threats, no proof. Just guilt and paranoia. It's strange how fear rewires your brain. You start noticing patterns in nothing. A car that turns when you turn, footsteps that echo a beat too long, shadows that feel familiar. I started seeing her everywhere. At gas stations. In reflections. Once I swear I saw her in my rearview mirror and smiling. But when I looked again, the road was empty. By the third week, I stopped going to work. I told them I needed a leave of absence. I shut off my phone, moved to a friend's spare room across town. I thought I could disappear quietly. But guilt doesn't let you disappear. For the first few days at my friend's place, I felt like maybe I'd finally escaped her. No texts, no photos, no late-night calls. I started walking again, trying to remember what normal felt like. I'd pick up coffee, scroll through job listings, pretend I wasn't half expecting her to step out of a crowd. But guilt leaves fingerprints on everything, even silence. One morning I got a letter. No return address. Just my name. Inside, there was a single sentence handwritten in the same looping script she used on Post-it notes at work. You don't get to run from what you started. I read it once. Then again. And something inside me shifted, and from fear to anger. For months, I'd let her crawl inside my head. I'd let her dictate my guilt, my shame, my every step. And for what? Because I was too cowardly to end it properly? No, not anymore. I decided I was going to end it my way. She worked at a different branch of the company now. I'd checked quietly through an old coworker. I waited until I knew she'd be leaving for the day, then parked across the street. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like my ribs were vibrating. When she came out, she looked almost ordinary. A long coat, earbuds in, carrying a coffee. Not a monster. Just a person I'd once ruined my life for. I almost left, almost. But then she turned her head like she knew I was there. Her eyes met mine across the street and she smiled. Calm, collected, like she'd been expecting this. So I got out of the car. She didn't move when I walked up. Just took out her earbuds and said softly, I was wondering when you'd stop hiding. I didn't say hello. I just asked, why are you doing this? She tilted her head, studying me. Doing what? You know what I mean. The photos. The letters. The reminders? She interrupted, smiling faintly. You needed them. No, I said, my voice cracking. You need help. Her smile faded, slowly. Then she said something that froze me completely. You told me I made you feel alive. Remember? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. She stepped closer. You said she didn't see you anymore. That you felt invisible. I saw you, didn't I? It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. People passing by probably thought we were just another ex-couple having a quiet argument. But the air around us felt like glass. One wrong word and it would shatter. You broke into my apartment, I said. You took pictures while I was asleep. She didn't even blink. I just wanted you to see what you looked like when you weren't pretending. I laughed. A broken, ugly sound. You're insane, she nodded almost kindly. You made me that way. Then she stepped closer, so close I could smell that same perfume. And whispered, you keep trying to erase me, but I'm the only one who knows who you really are. That's when I realized she didn't want revenge. She wanted control, and I'd already given it to her. I left her standing there on that sidewalk, but her words followed me home. For days they replayed in my head like static. I saw you. I saw you. I saw you. And maybe that was the worst part, because some part of me still believed it. A week later, my friend found me sitting in the dark, still wearing the same clothes, staring at my phone. He said, man, you look like you've seen a ghost. And I almost laughed, because that's what she'd become, a ghost I created. I tried to delete every trace of her, messages, photos, numbers, anything, but she was still everywhere. In my memories, in my guilt, in the reflection that looked back at me and whispered, you did this. Then one night, I got another text. No name, no number, just one line. I forgive you. I should have felt relief. But instead, I felt something else entirely. Terror. Because forgiveness meant she was done with me. And if she was done, what came next? After that last text, I forgive you, everything went quiet. No more photos, no letters, no calls. Just silence. And somehow that silence was worse than everything before. I kept waiting for the next thing, the next envelope, the next glimpse of her in a crowd, the next cold shock of realizing she'd found another way to get close. But days passed, then weeks, and nothing happened. I should have felt relief. Instead, I started to unravel. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. convinced I'd heard someone walking outside the door. Once, I swore I heard her humming again, that same tune she used to cook to, coming from the hallway. But when I opened the door, it was empty. My friend said I needed to move on. He meant well, but how do you move on from something that's half memory, half punishment? I started keeping a notebook. Times I thought I saw her, places I'd catch a flash of someone who looked like her. I told myself I was collecting evidence. But deep down, I knew I was just keeping her alive. Because the second I stopped writing, she'd win. One morning, I woke up to find my friend standing over me. "Man, this has to stop," he said. "You're not eating. You're not sleeping. You're jumping at shadows." "I'm not paranoid," I said. "She's out there. He cut me off. "You realize how that sounds?" I did. But that didn't make it less true. He said I needed help, therapy, a reset. So I booked an appointment. The therapist's office was small, quiet. She didn't ask about Megan right away. She just asked about Rachel. About the cheating. And I broke right there, mid-sentence. It wasn't even about Megan anymore. It was about me. About how I'd turned guilt into obsession. How I'd mistaken punishment for closure. "Do you think she's still following you?" The therapist asked. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe not. Maybe I'm following her." She wrote something down. "What would it mean if you were?" I stared at the floor for a long time before I said, "It would mean she doesn't exist anymore." "Not really." The therapist looked up. "And do you want her to stop existing?" I didn't answer. That night I dreamed about Rachel. She was standing in our old apartment, holding the photo of me asleep. Only this time it wasn't Megan behind the camera. It was me. I woke up shaking. And for the first time, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. I started seeing her, Megan, again. Not in person, but in flashes. On the train, across the aisle. In the grocery store, standing between the aisles. Always still. Always watching. Every time I blinked, she was gone. I told myself it was my mind trying to purge the guilt. That it wasn't really her. But then I'd find something. A note under my windshield, a receipt in my jacket pocket from a place I hadn't been. Always signed the same way. M. One night, I drove to her old apartment building. I don't know why. The parking lot was empty. The windows dark. I went up to her floor. The hallway smelled like cleaning supplies and stale air. Her door was closed, her name gone from the buzzer. A neighbor opened their door as I stood there. "Are you looking for someone?" they asked. "Yeah, Megan, she used to live here." The neighbor frowned. "There's never been anyone by that name here." I felt my stomach turn. "You sure? Apartment 3B? They nodded. 3B's been empty for months. Since before Christmas. That was 3 months before she sent me that first photo. I drove home shaking. Checked my messages, my photos, my call logs. Every trace of her was there. Every text, every voicemail, every word. Except one thing. When I tried to play the voicemail where she hummed that tune, it was gone. Deleted. And in its place there was a single empty audio file labeled, "You." I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. Every sound felt amplified. The hum of the fridge, the click of pipes, my own breathing. I started to wonder if Megan was ever real at all. Or if I'd built her out of guilt, a punishment I'd invented because the truth was too heavy to live with. The next morning, my therapist called. She said, "You missed your session." "I've been busy," I said automatically. "Doing what?" I looked around the room. Empty plates, old coffee cups, piles of paper filled with my own handwriting. And I said, trying to remember what really happened. There was a pause. Then she said gently, "Maybe stop trying to remember. Start trying to live." I hung up. And for the first time, I noticed the smell in the room. Her perfume. Sat there for hours, staring at the wall, trying to figure out if I was losing my mind, or if I'd already lost it. That scent, her perfume, it was faint but undeniable. The same one she wore the night she told me she forgave me. I checked the door. Locked. The windows. Closed. No one could have been inside. Still, the smell lingered. Sweet. Artificial. Wrong. That night, I found myself scrolling back through all our old messages again, like a ritual I couldn't stop performing. And that's when I noticed something. The timestamps. Half of them didn't make sense. Messages sent while I was asleep, replies that arrived instantly even though I'd never typed anything back. Then one image caught my eye. It was the photo of me sleeping, the one Megan sent me months ago. Only this time I saw something I hadn't before. In the reflection of the window behind me, a faint outline of my own arm holding the phone. It didn't make sense at first. My brain refused it. I must have stared at that reflection for 10 minutes straight, waiting for it to shift into something else. Some trick of light, some shape that proved it wasn't real. But it stayed the same. My hand, my phone, my shadow. I'd taken the photo. I don't remember doing it. I don't remember any of it. But once I saw that reflection, the pieces started falling into place in ways I didn't want them to. The texts from Megan that arrived when I was asleep. The letters that only I ever saw. The perfume always faint but familiar. I'd been chasing someone who wasn't there. I thought about what my therapist said, that maybe I was following her. She'd been right. I was following an echo, a projection of everything I hated about myself. Every time I felt guilty, every time I couldn't sleep, every time I saw Rachel's face and wanted to crawl out of my skin, Megan appeared. She wasn't real. She was the shape my guilt took. The next morning I packed a bag. No plan, no destination. Just the idea that I needed to move, or I'd rot where I was sitting. Before leaving, I deleted everything, every photo, every message, every voicemail. When I got to the last one, I hesitated. It was titled You. I hit play. At first, silence. Then faint breathing. Mine. And then my own voice whispering, I forgive you. I don't remember recording it, but hearing it broke something in me. All this time I'd been searching for forgiveness from someone else, when the person I needed it from was me. That was 6 months ago. I quit my job. Started therapy again, properly this time. Moved to a smaller place. No photos on the walls, no memories in the corners. Sometimes I still catch that scent, her perfume, when I'm alone. It doesn't scare me anymore. I just open a window. Let it fade. Because some ghosts don't come from the dead. They come from the parts of us we refuse to bury. And maybe the only real way to forgive someone is to stop haunting yourself.